Hello and welcome to Masquerade Breach. I'm Blazewing,
I'm Catherine Cosplays, otherwise known as Krisha.
And I'm Oceanus Veritas, also known as Cam.
and we're going to be talking about Daybreakers today. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of Masquerade Breach. Before we get started with that, unfortunately, Marley's not here with us. We do miss her dearly, and we hope she recovers quickly from whatever plague she has picked up. She really needs to stop bringing things home, though.
We like the gifts, but no thank you.
To start off with, for today, I have my unfiltered commentary from this movie, as is usual. No context, as follows. They're blue dubba dee dubba die. Oh, look. Food insecurity issues. Are we sure this is a work of fiction? Vampires found out about capitalism. Kinda brings new meaning to the words blood money. They turned the doc from Jurassic Park. Dude reenacted that scene. Dude reenacted that one scene in The Exorcist. Ooh, vampire explosive. Apparently, the lack of blood makes you a little batty. Wait a minute. Is he Vampire Jesus? He was a vampire and is now alive? He is Vampire Jesus! Damn it, that was a brand new paint job. Wonder if Alan got the point. They literally burned the vampire out of him. At least the cleanup here is easy. You know, capitalism in this context will never allow for a cure. And my absolute favorite comment that I've made, and I want to talk about a bit later, this movie is vampirism with a cure done right. So, let's talk about it. Scenes. What stuck out to you?
Hmm.
This was like a movie. Like, this is the first I've ever seen of this concept
Mm-hmm.
that, I was describing it last week after we watched it, that, this is like this is like the vampire version of all, zombie movies, where, there's an outbreak and they want to find, a cure to it. This is just such an interesting concept that I really it's so weird that I've really never thought of this before, excuse me. Um like and I found it so fascinating. Everything about it. It was so well done. And then also Willem Dafoe. Like I heard the voice and I was like, "Oh my God, that's Willem Dafoe." So my fiance and I were watching this in bed, and literally, it is a meme at this point that I fall asleep during the movies. I stayed up watching this movie because I was just so enthralled with it that I was like, I have to watch it because it's so good. And it just kept, and then the little twists and turns, it was just, I loved it. It was fascinating.
How about you, Ocean?
So, this movie, first off, brought in the idea of Alan from, Jurassic Park meets William Dafoe, which at the time, um, I remembered him as Green Goblin. I've seen him in Boondock Saints, and I've seen him in this movie. And I go, the only other time I've ever seen him at playing a vampire was actually for one of the ones that we did earlier. Um, I believe it was Vampire's Assistant. He was one of the vampires in Vampire's Assistant. I think he did a better job being, the born again human. I guess we'll call it, or as we all say, vampire Jesus. So seeing seeing him playing these different roles, I think this was a better version of him. Um, I was very. I had been wanting to watch this movie for a while. I had not seen this movie when it came out, but I've seen posters for it and everything like that. And I actually enjoyed this movie. This movie had a lot of ups and downs and takes. Um, it brought to light a real world problem in a fictional setting, and that's something that I think still resonates to this day.
Sorry, I'm just chatting with some of our audience members over on TikTok in the chat. Muting myself because it tends to pick up everything I fucking type. Like I got to start putting filters on this mic. Anyways, this is a unique take. This movie. There are very few like it, if any others at all. I think. The concept of this movie: vampires basically have taken over the world. Virtually everybody is a vampire. They swapped where the humans normally sit and the vampires normally sit. So in this case, the humans are actually the minority. Vampires are very quickly draining their blood supply and need to find a way to fix that. There's a couple of different ways that this movie deals with that. One is through the invention of a synthetic blood. The other is through a cure, which is absolutely fascinating to watch. Because unlike Midnight Sun, which we watched, where they just kind of rush it at the end, here in this movie, it turns out to be a rather major plot point, which I think is why it worked so well. But it is it's a very unique take. I liked seeing things from this direction. I think it was really well executed. As for scenes that kind of stuck out, I'm sorry, but watching a vampire speed down the highway at 120 miles an hour, hit a post, go flying out through the windshield, catch fire, land in the water, and then just stand there like, what the fuck just happened to me? Will forever sit in my heart as, yep, that happened. Also, I found it interesting that lack of blood starts to morph the body. You can actually watch it in some of the characters that are blood deprived. You can watch their features change, and then when they get that blood, up to a certain point, they will revert. But once they've reached that point, it's game over for them. That for me is wild, and I liked the relationship between the two brothers. Kind of shows light and dark, day and night, kind of showing off that, not everything is as it seems, not everything has just one specific answer, and you need to be able to take everything into account around you in order to be able to assess situations properly. You might not have all of the pieces that you need. He did it GTA style? Absolutely he did. So, with that being said, let's talk favorite parts. What was favorite and hated parts? What was your most hated scene for this movie? We'll start off with the bad, we'll move into the good.
So there's a bit that kind of throws off. There's a lot of moving parts in this movie that kind of seem to coalesce in at one point where it's all kind of converging on itself. Um, I think one of my least favorite parts was the way that they portray um, William Dafoe's turning, actually, and the idea that what why wasn't he wearing a seatbelt? Like, was 2019 we just stopped wearing seatbelts all of a sudden? Um, I know they were going for a futuristic look, but given the time frame of when this movie was made and it being 2019, it seemed like they were really stretching on kind of a sci-fi. They didn't understand what they were doing. Like you see, like the Pontiac, but then you see these other cars that are far more futuristic, and I'm just going, it's kind of pulling me out a bit. It's the nuances that caught me in this. The dialogue amazing, the story amazing. It's the nuances that kind of gave me a iffy shift.
See, I took it as they were going for more cyberpunk vibes, except they didn't quite reach the level like Cyberpunk 2077 has, for instance.
Right.
Krisha.
I'm gonna have to say the beginning and the setup. That was a little awkward. There were some pretty awkward moments, but I understand that they had to get through like a lot of exposition really fucking fast. So,
Mm.
like the beginning, like it there were some unnecessary bits and it didn't flow as great as it could have. And I think that I don't know, like I don't know if there could have been a way that they could make that smoother, but just because there was just so much to introduce so quickly, um yeah.
Yeah, it kind of just it felt like it was a bombardment of information that we had to download real quick. Just that idea that these things happen succinctly, like right here, right now, immediately. You must know all this. Like it was pretty artificially set up.
Just want to quickly answer one of our audience members' question because I don't know if my messages are going through or not. You want to know if you can come watch with us? Absolutely. Come talk to one of the hosts. We will get you an invite link to come and watch with us. Anyone here or Marley wins. You can send me a message or any one of these guys. Nope, you're quite good. Don't worry about all the questions, okay? We appreciate questions. If you want to come and watch the movies with us, like we do community watch parties. We have a server set up specifically for it. So come and talk to us. We are fairly open about that. As for me, I do agree. The setup was a little janky. It was a little cluttered. But I understand why things had to be that way. Much like you. Other than that, I don't think there was any one particular scene that stuck out as like worst scene ever. Each individual movie is going to have their own lore. They're going to have that like probably clunky exposition at the beginning, especially if they're trying to do a rather unique take like this one did. They have to get through like, dude, human race went and like screwed the pooch with this. We're going to have to like rush you through. It's like taking say a high school course, which has like half a year to explain everything and condensing it down into 3 months like university does. I'm trying to figure out how to fit all of that crap in. What about your favorite scenes? Yeah, and given that it was only an hour and a half movie, makes that time crunch even more crucial, I think. You are absolutely right with that.
I do have a one more I wish that there was.
Yeah.
There was okay, so pretty much in every vampire movie we've watched, there has been like one scene where like the vampire is like starving and the romantic interest is like, you need blood in order to survive. Here, take my blood. And then there's like a bite, and it's a very intense moment. And I was like getting ready for that. Like, ooh, they're gonna have the bite in the car. And then she puts it in a fucking solo cup and hands it to him. And there's just like no, like I was like, where is it? but like I get that in their universe, like even just getting nipped, you turn into a vampire. But I was like, where is the bite? Where was the bite? It's not there. Oh no.
Again, kind of harkens back to some of the age-old myths where a bite will literally do it. It's not the, feeding on both ends. It's literally just a quick bite. It could be a slice of the skin with a tooth. That's all it takes. So favorite scenes. Who wants to start?
So, there's a couple of scenes. I actually enjoyed the aspect of not the bite. It showed that vampirism in itself was a virus.
Mm-hmm.
It was a sickness that like HPV, whereas most people are asymptomatic. The idea behind that was that I found it kind of in a way a very beautiful moment with that aspect in the explanation of how this transferred to others through a bite, through blood transference, just that, DNA switch or whatnot. And it just shows how prevalent that can rapidly spread like wildfire. That same idea is that they took that along with the idea of, say, kind of a 2077 vibe to it, but not quite there, just kind of in there. A few of my favorite scenes that really highlighted this was um, the setup with I can't remember the vampire boss's name, but while they're trying to find the synthetic blood to work on it, he ends up going to the boss and is like, well, when can I expect these to work? We know that there's casualties and all that. And at first you're thinking that this vampire boss is looking to help people. And then that gradual shift that no, he's here to make money.
The boss's name is Charles.
Charles, that's who it is. Charles being, very, very much, you know, this oh, giving at one point the I'm here for humanitarian efforts and, making sure that, we find something that'll help our kin stay alive because nobody wants casualties, no one wants to die, that kind of thing. And then it slowly reveals that he's more in it for the control and money and power that it brings. The fact that his own daughter was very much, turned against her will, and then she was eventually, you could tell that there was just no love for humanity in this man as he sent his own daughter to die in fire and whatnot.
I just want to stop you there for just a quick sec. Is it really a humanitarian effort if nobody's really human anymore?
To be fair, yeah, you're right. I guess Vampirian, how do you say it? Vampirarian? Vampinarian, there we go. Vampinarian efforts. New word, Vampinarian.
Sorry,
Learn
that
it.
was bugging the shit out of me. Continue.
Vampitarian efforts, yeah, there we go. Then the other aspect of the gradual shift from a guy that it seemed weird, like he was oddly attracted to this woman that was human and he knew she was human. Like, he was like, she was like, I'll see you around. And he's like, nuh-uh, probably not. And all of a sudden, here I am. I told you I'd see you around again. That kind of thing. It's like, oh, well, dang, who saw that twist? I actually liked their approach on there isn't a whole lot of vampires that we can trust. I think it's one of my favorite lines out of it. While they're holding up a stake at him, going, we're willing to trust you, by the by. Don't mind what's in my hand. The idea, it felt organic for someone who's very guarded about the trust that they give, and they only give a modicum of trust. I think, yeah, the idea that she cuts her hand, bad idea to cut your hand there, but I get it for movie's sake or whatnot. But the idea behind it was that that she didn't get infected, and the efforts that they brought into this film to portray that he's willing to go through this and sacrifice his vampirism to save humanity was actually really cool too. And these are my favorite scenes and highlights.
I loved the end. I thought that ended on such a beautiful, perfect note. I love the little twist that their blood is the cure.
Yep.
I love that twist. And like I even commented in in the Discord, I was like, so they just have to during the day just like leave a couple of baggies on the ground and the chain reaction will pretty much handle itself.
Mm-mm.
They just need to bunker down for a
Oh.
couple of days and they're set.
Well, so here's the thing with that. If you leave the blood in a baggie out in the sun, the blood is going to be destroyed. It will catch fire. It will die. The kicker, you have to be there just long enough to jumpstart the biological processes again. And then, like, put out the fire. Like, you have to be on fire enough to jumpstart the heart again, which kickstarts everything else in the body. It's a very fine line, because if you don't hit that, like, instant where you're at the moment between alive and dead, you're gone. It has to be precise.
No, I meant Edward and Elvis's blood.
Oh,
The Willem Dafoe like the main characters who get turned back, because then if you get turned back, your blood then becomes the cure. So they just have to like throw a couple of baggies out there, and like the vampire population will pretty much handle itself.
we also don't know how long the blood can be outside of the human body before it is rendered inert and useless.
But like that's the great part. Also, I love that all of the vampires fucking explode. Like when they die, they explode. And I love that. That is so funny and just so cool. Like this whole movie could be my favorite part just cuz like it's so cool. Every part of it was so cool, so unique. Like I've never seen it this way. Like and it ended on an open it ended open.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's still work to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just so cool, and I'm so glad that we watched it.
For me, I think my favorite part of this movie was actually the interaction with the daughter. You've got this tycoon, this like mogul who wants to get as rich as he can off of this. No limitation to what he can do in that respect. His daughter, completely opposed to this by any means, like doesn't want any part of this whatsoever. Refuses point blank every time she's asked, or every time the opportunity presents itself. So he kidnaps her, brings her to the office, has her imprisoned, has her turned, and she sticks to her guns. It's not, this power is great, I finally feel like I'm living, so to speak. She's like, I don't want any part of this. And she starts like trying to feed off herself to poison herself. They get pissed off about that. And we actually see like just how feral she goes before she's dragged out of the room. You can see it in her eyes. You can see it in her face. She's like hiding in a corner, trying to shrink away from anything or anyone else that she can, before she's dragged off, literally kicking and screaming, and then dragged out into the sun and burned. Mm-hmm. That for me is absolutely wild and will be forever one of my favorite scenes in this entire movie. It shows just kind of, some of these characters aren't actually two-dimensional. It shows that they, have no qualms sticking to their guns, that it doesn't matter what happens to them. Their morals and ethics are uncorruptible in certain cases. That for me makes a great story. I also like the brother, his arc, where he turned the main character because he was being selfish. He realizes that as the movie goes on and whatnot, the brother ends up eventually becoming human. Once they realize that the basically rehumanified blood is the cure, he sacrifices himself so everybody else can, fuck off. He stands in the way, completely gives up his life, and in turn causes a mass feeding frenzy, might I add, where most of them don't come out alive through various circumstances. They all get torn to bits, but hey, mission accomplished.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting parts about that specific scene near the end, and spoilers for those who haven't seen it, was that his partner, who he thought he could trust, literally betrays him, as we're pretty darn sure he was getting paid to. Ended up shooting a couple of these human survivors after they've turned to his old partner, who's also human at this point, basically saying, I can't let you do this. I have money to make, essentially, and my synthetic blood is going to go to waste if you keep curing them. And that whole idea of just he was going to shoot him, and then of course we saw how that all happened and he exploded.
Yeah. Just the go ahead.
That whole idea just behind it was we saw how power corrupts, and I think that absolutely alludes to even today's. It resonates that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and this is an absolute good trope to go off of when it comes to this movie. Feeling how Daybreakers was actually kind of a breath of fresh air, that we can look back on this movie repeatedly and still see the resonance and the nuances that kind of have a ripple effect in today's current events even.
Our mogul finally gets the guy that he's after. You can't keep screwing up my plans for money and blood supply and all of that shit. And the guy's walks in. You can see him turn his face away from the people, the girl that he'd been working with. He's like, I can't do it anymore. I can't be one of them anymore. I'm not cut out to be human. Just this fucking sob story. And when that doesn't work, goes straight for the throat, figuratively speaking. Tries to piss this guy off as much as he can, which works because he realizes, of course, what's going to happen. The mogul bites him, and we just wait a couple of seconds. What have you done to me? And then they send him down as bait.
Yeah, they tie him up, they gag him, and essentially they realize that he's human, and then boom, just feeding frenzy.
And the kicker is, once you've been rehumanified, you can't be turned again. The bite doesn't work on you anymore. That's it. Game over. You have one chance to become undead, and that's it.
And that's the interesting thing about that is that it's like a vaccine. Mm-hmm. Your body knows to fight this now.
It's got an immune response, memory response.
Yep. Which I think is amazing because that again translates to how vaccines work too.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. Cool. So, seeing as Marley's not here, this is going to be a bit of a shorter episode, unfortunately, but we have gotten to the point of the episode where we give our ratings. So, what do you guys think? Scale of 1 to 5. Was it good? Would you recommend it? Was it vampire, like, was it vampire based? Was it vampire lore? What do you guys think? Who wants to go first?
I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5. I would absolutely recommend this movie. It is most definitely a vampire movie. It is a future dystopian vampire film, and I love it. That's it. It's sweet, sweet to the point. It is such an interesting flip on its head vampire movie. Because all of the vampire movies we've watched so far, except maybe like one or two, are about like a vampire wanting to turn other vampires and the heroes going to stop them. Like, this is the complete opposite, and it's like redemption and restoring humanity, which is so incredible.
Not just to, not to mention important in today's world, but we're not here to talk about that. Ocean.
So I'm gonna give this a 4.25. And the reason why I'm giving this a 4.25 is because it absolutely is a vampire movie. It has everything that a vampire movie is. It has fangs, it has claws, it has blood, it has, you know, pretty much what a vampire is. The reason this isn't going up higher is because there was zero supernatural powers. Zero. And I think that's interesting. Except for, I guess, apparently they say you can live immortal. You have immortality as like the only supernatural thing you have. Which I'm sure a bunch of them clung on to that and was like, that's the reason why they're keeping it. Um, the reason why also I'm giving it such a high rating is because if nothing else, this has an all-star lineup of actor and cast. Um, this brings to light a very refreshing take on vampirism in itself. Has William Dafoe, has the actor that plays Alan in Jurassic Park. It has a hot, actress. It has a hot dude. It has everything you could ever want from it, and it has a take on something that is hardly talked about, especially in fiction, and that is something that the dystopic world, especially with that, especially with en masse, kind of the overarching lore of that. This is kind of where capitalism will take you if you continue to let it run prevalent. I think that's a perfect point that this movie sums up beautifully. And they take vampirism in a way that is, like you guys have said, unique, different, and it does it so well that this was definitely a passion project for someone.
I'm actually with Krisha on this. I'm gonna give this one a 3.5. This movie was great. Dragged me in. Like, I was completely enraptured with this movie when I first saw it. Will continue to be kind of a favorite for multiple different reasons, a lot of which I've talked about. Had a decent lineup of cast, unique and interesting storyline. A couple of bones to pick. Again, vampire power is not really a thing. The storyline was okay. Like, the plot was great, but the way they, I think, communicated the story itself could have been a little better. I think that this was absolutely a passion project for somebody, and that shows. Like, even if the script is bad, it'll show that you. Not to say that the script here was bad, but like, even if the script is bad, if it's a passion project and somebody puts a little bit of TLC into it, it can come out quite decent on the other end. For me, I think it didn't drag me in as much as some others that I have seen have, but it's not an overly bad movie. I don't know. It had its ups, it had its downs, it was an emotional roller coaster, and I will forever be kind of brought in by that emotion. That is, if you can display that through the screen, it's going to probably grab my attention. So I'm going to give this a 3.5. Question to both of you. Would you recommend this movie to other people?
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. This is a good movie that will absolutely be going down in history. Like, I mean, this is one that I think even if you're not big on vampire movies, the gothic dystopia that it presents absolutely gives to a light that that I think a lot of people can get behind even today.
Mm-hmm.
Also, no supernatural powers. I'm sorry, do humans explode when they die?
Yes, if you lob the right instrument.
So.
Yes, if you lob the right instruments at them.
So you throw a saxophone at someone and they explode?
I do want to say there is rare cases of human combustion. Again, it's very, very down rabbit holes and quite literally in the nethers of, the void fringe of, conspiracy theories. But yeah, just exploding naturally.
Well, I guess on that note, it's time to wrap up. I'm curious to hear what Marley had to say on this. I'm going to miss hearing Marley's review on this, unfortunately. But it is what it is, and unfortunately sick can't be helped. So, before I officially do our signing off, next episode is going to be Season 2, Episode 9, Perfect Creature. This is going to be our last episode for the season before we break for like mid-season staff discussions and whatnot and plan out Season 3. We do community watch days. If you'd like to join us, you're welcome to come to any one of the hosts and talk to us, and we can toss you a link. I think Season 2 overall so far, just as we're getting ready to wrap up the season, has gone pretty well. I think we've had a lot of somewhat decent movies this season.
Absolute bangers.
Yeah,
I will say.
Yeah.
So
except the Dark Prince. We don't talk about that movie.
We don't talk about that movie. No.
And the 4 years that was Fright Night.
I loved that movie. Don't you dare besmirch the name of Fright Night. Hot Prince Humperdinck? I will take it every fucking day.
For Season 2. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, Prince Humperdinck as a vampire, we knew this trope was going to be his niche, his bread and butter.
So for Season 2, Episode 8, Daybreakers, I'm Blazewing.
I'm Catherine Cosplays, otherwise known as Krisha.
I'm Oceanus Veritas, also known as Cam.
I want to do it.
Marley sends her regards this week. Please take it away.
And that was Masquerade Breach. And remember, don't tell the Camarilla, otherwise we'll have to watch Dracula the Dark Prince again.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Oh, don't tell the Camarilla, otherwise they'll fling us out of the car but not put us into water.
Don't tell the Camarilla. We'll never get our cure if you do.
Don't tell the Camarilla. I don't have the money to pay the Ventru off.
Don't tell the Camarilla I don't have insurance.
Something we forgot to mention, this movie is absolutely what if